X-Men. Get it!
Hey everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Battle of the Atom. This is your weekly X-Men podcast where we rank every story from A to Z.
I'm Adam.
And you know what? I'm Zack, and I'm mad, Adam. I'm mad at you.
What are you?
I'm mad at you.
At me?
I'm mad at you.
What did I do?
I think we have different philosophies, and I think that you and I are just at this impasse here. We are at a fork in the road, and I'm afraid that this podcast is going to be torn asunder.
You know, maybe you should just move to an island, Mr. Jenkins, and I'll take the East Coast. What do you think about that?
I mean, like, listen, if the Ohio River would actually encompass the state, then I don't know if it would count as an island, but it would be close. I guess
A peninsula of sorts.
Well, no, because a peninsula has to be connected to something. So I guess if the Ohio River were to go up to, say, Toledo, on the north, and I guess it's less the Ohio at that point, and that's really the Miami, which it's short of Toledo. I forget where, but it goes up that direction more or less. Because and then instead of going into Pittsburgh, it just went straight up for the start of it. Then it would be a peninsula coming off of, I guess, Michigan and being held by Lake Erie and the Ohio River. So
sure, why not?
We could do that, I guess. I don't know why we're doing geography right now.
I don't either. I'm also unclear about what our battling ideology is, but I guess it doesn't really matter because we're talking about Schism this week.
We are talking about Schism. The ideology doesn't matter. It's just that there's a schism, and that schism is between the two people. I don't know which one of us is more the Wolverine. I don't think it's...
Well, one of us, I guess, supports child soldiers, and the other one supports a well-rounded education, which includes giving an American Girl doll to a 14-year-old.
I would say that I support child soldiers more than you. I feel like
sure.
on the mean, that would make me Wolverine and you... No, that would make me Cyclops and you Wolverine. That's right, because it doesn't even make any sense. That's right. Sorry.
It's an odd choice given, Wolverine runs around in this time period on like a secret Black Ops assassination team. But
so
he's
that children
there
don't have to be on secret Black Ops assassination teams anymore.
Right. Even if they've already been coming with him on them.
He only brought children on his secret Black Ops assassination teams for a bit, for a while.
Right.
Oh.
Yeah. This does sort of come out of nowhere. Anyway, who do we have to thank for talking about Schism?
To thank, and thank's a strong word here, to thank for us talking about Schism, we have our good friend Jason Large. Jason is... great dude, good pal, amazing designer. He redid the entire Comics XF website. He was part of the team that did the new logo. He just curated a new section of the website called Comics XF Primer, where it's looking at these really nifty, almost infographic-like things showing, hey, these are cool series that we love that you should pick up, or these are some reading lists and kind of reading orders of, hey, I've always wanted to get into like Superman, but I don't know how. I don't know where to start with Superman because he's been published since the 30s. What do I do? And these are like, well, do you want to just like get like top level? How about you want to get like to Superman Advance, and then like here's the pro getting into Superman. And then after you do all this, you're probably going to be ready to get into Superman at whatever level you want. You're going to be able to jump into whatever wild stuff. Anyway, that was a passion project Jason did, and we're real excited that launched. But Jason also, it's funny because Jason gets paid for the website when he writes stuff. And then he also pays into the website because he likes it so much, because he went over to patreon.com/comicsxf and tossed a few dollars our way to help us out and to get a comic covered on the show. And the comic that he chose is Schism, written by Jason Aaron. It's a 5-issue miniseries with different artists on each issue. So Carlos Pacheco, Cam Smith, and Frank D'Armata do issue number 1. The second issue is Frank Chow and Jason Keith. The third issue is Daniel Cunha. The fourth issue is Alan Davis, Mark Farmer, and Jason Keith. And the fifth issue is Adam Kubrick, Mark Roslin, and Jason Keith. Hey,
that sure is a variety of different art styles, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. Before we get into this, so this was a weekly event that they were doing back in 2011, and it was the end of the Utopia era proper.
Right.
It was splitting up, and essentially what you knew going into this, because solicits existed. And things got solicited 3 months in advance, was that Wolverine and Cyclops were going to fight. They were going to break up. And Wolverine was going to have his own book called Wolverine and the X-Men. And Cyclops was going to have Uncanny X-Men #1, literally the first time that title had been used ever.
Yeah, so this is the 5-issue breakup story. It's a real mixed bag, I would say. And did we mention this is a Jason Aaron joint?
We did mention that this was a Jason Aaron joint.
This is a Jason Aaron joint. And
now, Jason Aaron had been the writer of Wolverine.
Right.
At this point in continuity. He was currently writing the character. He would go on to write Wolverine and the X-Men for the next little spell.
Yeah, and this definitely feels much more like proto-Wolverine and the X-Men than anything else. It is a clunky story that involves the formation of the Hellfire Club Kids Club. It's got some Kid Omega stuff in it, and it's all around just kind of okay.
So let me give you a pie in the sky kind of look here.
Sure.
Wolverine and Cyclops give a speech at the UN and say, hey, Sentinels are bad, don't use them. Please, there's 198 of us. You don't need genocide robots for us. Please, let us live on our rock. Please.
Yes.
Quentin Quire, who, at this point, it's important to remember, had appeared in Riot at Xavier's, Phoenix Endsong, and a, 3-page no-girl backup in anthology series.
Right. So he was basically just in a test tube in Beast's lab at this point.
Yeah, he had ascended to a higher plane of existence at this time.
Right.
That's not me making things up. That's the text.
Right. Yep.
And anyway, he comes back like Alfred E. Newman. Which is exactly how Frank Chow draws him. And it's
oh man, nobody knows what he looks like. Nobody. The character design is all over the map.
All over the map. He invades the UN and makes all of the dignitaries tell their deepest, darkest secrets, including the Iranian dignitary.
Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, who straight up is like Mahmoud Ahmadinejad.
Yeah,
they did not just try to, make it somebody else. They straight up just drew him into the comic. Here's Iran's president.
There's Jason Aaron draws some pretty Islamophobic stuff writes some Islamophobic stuff in this. Not saying that Iran is a great or well-run or particularly good government, but also he does make the Muslim country the face of all oppression and bigotry in the world, and the center point of that, which is not great. But we find out that all of this was a coordinated effort to get people more into the Sentinel program and wanting to buy new Sentinels and doing new Sentinel stuff by Cade Kilgore.
You seem excited to talk about Cade Kilgore.
he's 12-year-old Shinobi Shaw is what he is.
That's a good description. I never really thought about it that way, but that is exactly what he is.
He's introduced by killing his dad and becoming the Black King of the Hellfire Club.
That's correct. Also, though, like the version of the Hellfire Club that is presented here is very strange. It's sort of this long table of hooded figures, and the Hellfire Kids Club takes him out at some point in this story.
Unrecognizable.
No, it's very strange.
It's like Jason Aaron's like, Hellfire Club, rich guys. Yeah, I got this. I figured this out. I'll run with this. And he does it, I guess. And Cade Kilgore brings in 3 other terrible kids, which, by the way, no one in this comic can draw a child.
The first issue, I think Pacheco probably does the best job of actually capturing like a young Cade Kilgore. But gosh, they're especially, I think it's Cubert.
Cubert.
At the end is like, what?
Cubert is drawing some like John Romita Jr. looking children. They do not look like they should exist on any mortal plane.
Yeah, but their age is like depending on the artist, their age is jumping up and down, up and down. And the art in general in this is such a wild contrast from issue to issue. Obviously, I've spoken about my love for Daniel Acuña's stuff in the past, and I think his issue is probably my favorite.
Yes.
There is a newly opened history museum of the X-Men, which also kind of feels like a jokey Jason Aaron type thing.
It's dumb that there would be a history museum for the X-Men when the X-Men had existed for 10 years?
Sure, we don't know that floating time scale. It does seem very odd.
Yeah.
And then that gets attacked by the Hellfire Kids Club, and then this giant, like, mutating nanotech sentinel decides to just walk through the water to go destroy Utopia, and then I guess Cyclops and Wolverine just decide that's a great time to get into a philosophical debate about the age at which X-Men should become X-Men.
Yeah, so, and we'll talk about the specific event in our next story that we cover here, but one of the Generation Hope teens, Oya, she has to kill a bunch of Hellfire guards to save all the other X-Men and stop a bomb from going off and killing thousands. And Wolverine doesn't like that. And it's not like Cyclops likes it, but he's very pragmatic about it and said, well, listen, she was literally the only person who could do anything. So our options were, say, do what you need to do or die.
It's a very weak premise, in general. The fact that Logan is... okay, I mean, just look at it historically. Logan has been a mentor to teenage girls before.
Constantly. He has taught many teenage girls how to murder.
I was going to say, he has taught Kitty Pryde and coached her through becoming a ninja. He has had Jubilee as just sort of like a rambling sidekick for a very long time. Armor, like the list goes on, and yet this one bugs him to the point where I mentioned this before, but she's already 14 years old, and he's like lamenting the lost youth that she's had.
It's because this is what Jason Aaron thinks that little girls and all women care about, is wanting to play with dolls and keeping that weird right? purity. Yeah, I don't know how to put this the right way. I am not pro child soldiers.
Of course not.
I do not. I think that on a black and white scale, Wolverine is correct. We should have less child soldiers in the world.
it's the way it's illustrated, though, right? Like, the way
Yes.
it's demonstrated.
They demonstrate it by saying that the options are children should never get into a fight, even if it means they are going to die and other people are going to die. Versus Cyclops, whose stance is, I've been a child soldier since I was 16, and that may not have been the healthiest upbringing, but there's less than 200 mutants in the world, and people continually try to kill us. So, to me, it does make sense that we would accept that reality and work under that, not accept a dream of something better.
It's also situational. Like,
Very?
it's really situational. Like, here is this giant sentinel coming to go step on Utopia. Here are, high school age students ready to help the fight. And, like, Cyclops is like, I'm not going to stop you. You can help out if you want. And Wolverine's like, no, go play with a doll.
This is not small, innocent children that Cyclops is like, well, I guess we are literally the only people at our house that can defend it. We should probably defend it. No, these are the kid X-Men who have been doing things for years. This is Hope Summers, who has been holding a gun since she was 2. This is X-23. These are kids who have spent a lot of time training to be X-Men. These are kids who have fought Nimrod. So another Sentinel, I feel like, should not be the tipping point for Wolverine to cover the entire island with C4 and say, I will literally blow up our house if you make these kids do an X-Men fight. He's right in the sense that, yeah, we shouldn't make kids do fights. That's bad. All superheroes are bad. All superheroes are actually unhealthy if you think about it for too long. This is Wolverine making the argument that Bruce Wayne should just, do universal basic income for Gotham, and that'll stop the Joker from doing chemical attacks on everyone's fish. It's like, yeah, sure, okay, we understand Wolverine, but that's ignoring the premise of the story of the strangest teens of all time.
Yeah, it just strikes me as, very out of character. This was, what's funny is, I think we've talked before about the fact that this is the era that I got back into X-Men. I think you had a similar thing about getting
right
into
after an Uncanny one right after this, yeah.
Right, and I was getting into Wolverine and the X-Men, and then I got into all new X-Men.
Man, it's wild that we actually did choose different sides of the Schism to get back into X-Men. So in a way, the Schism did work for exactly how they planned.
And what strikes me is that, obviously it's a publishing move, right? To get them into the 2 separate books and split up the teams and everything. We'll talk a little bit more about that later in the show, but it just doesn't feel in character how they got there. You know what I mean? It seems so sudden and so out of character for Wolverine to have this, there should be another reason. And it gets to the point where there's this one moment when Cyclops and Wolverine are about to throw down, when Cyclops says something about Jean not liking Wolverine, never have loved Wolverine or something. And I'm like, wait, really? We're doing this?
Do you think, Adam, do you think Jason Aaron is ever going to miss an opportunity to do that? The answer is no, he will not. And we all know that the real answer is that these two just need to kiss and make up, which they eventually got their moon house, and everyone's happy.
That's right.
It's wild how no one's upset about this, and we all just said, yes, this finally makes sense, y'all.
Yeah. Especially in the contrast of having the Hellfire Kids Club be the villains, and then that extending over to Wolverine and the X-Men, it's just strange. The whole thing is just weird.
The plot is tonally based on weird goofs of these small children teaming up with space aliens to do this stuff, and then at the same time Wolverine and Cyclops having this big existential discussion. Like if you want to do like Garth Ennis, Punisher Max kind of, world without superheroes vibe, if that's really what you want, and you want to look at the nitty gritty, like this is the reality of the situation, this is why child soldiers are bad, you can do that. I won't like that story either, but you can do it, and you can probably have something to say. But when you have 12-year-olds, one of which is a descendant of Dr. Victor Frankenstein,
don't say it.
It does undercut the point you're trying to make, Jason Aaron.
Yes, it sure does. But in the end, I guess it served its purpose, and it splits the teams up. So
wait, this wasn't. I'm sorry. I said this was week. This was weekly. This was not weekly. They did this from July to October. Shoot, this is no excuse. Y'all should have just gotten one artist for this.
It's a strange decision, and it also adds to sort of the discombobulating feel of the book. We already noted that the character designs sort of flop from one to the other, and it's not that any of the individual issues is poorly drawn. They're well constructed, but
I think the Frank Cho one's pretty bad, and I think the Alan Davis one is not Alan Davis's shining hour.
Look, they're fine. They're complete comic books. They don't look like they were like super rushed or anything like that.
Right.
It's
Okay.
They're fine. They're fine. But you're right. It would be a little bit more tonally consistent if we could have just had one. You know what I mean? All right. That being said, I think we should probably rank this on our big old list.
Yeah, because, Adam, I'll tell you, we have 489 stories on our road to 500.
Holy cow.
We are so close. I can taste it, and we're gonna have to get through some stuff first, including the number one story on our list, which is House of X: Powers of 10. The number 100 story on our list, The Fall and Rise of the New Mutants. The 200 story on our list, which is Phoenix Resurrection: The Return of Jean Grey. 300th story on our list is X-Men 17 through 19, Skinning of Souls. 400 on our list is Excalibur 31, which I forget which one that is completely and utterly.
Is that where she fights Galactus?
Nope. That's the Son of Krakoa. That's the Son of Krakoa.
That makes more sense.
That's exactly what it is.
It's too low to be the other one.
It is, because that one where Rachel fights Galactus rules. Adam, that one's great.
It is. It's really good.
And then 489 is the Draco.
All right. Better or worse than Extinction Agenda at 313?
That's a good question. I want to say probably a bit better than Extinction Agenda.
All
but
right.
I'm also not hot on Extinction Agenda at all.
Yeah. No, it's a mess as a story, for sure. This is probably a little bit more cohesive, but I think it's still messy, and I think we've also like kind of highlighted the out of character that's going on here. So
I think
where else?
We're in the right area. I think like 302 is the X-Men versus the Avengers, which is similarly messy and inconsistent art and confounding, but I do think Schism is better than that.
Okay, so we're working our way into the 200s here.
It's not as good as 275, which is another Jason Aaron comic, which is Dark Reign: The List Wolverine #1, where Phantom X and Novar use atheism to defeat a weapon from Weapon Plus.
Okay, that's fair.
That story's better than this one. Like, I don't love it, but it's better than it. That's got a Sod Ribic art the whole time.
That is true. I feel like this might be a little better than the first 4 issues of Marvel Fanfare. Savage
Land arc. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not better than Final Sanction from Phalanx Covenant. Sanction.
It's not. All right, so that's going to make it our new 279.
that will make it our new number 279, Schism. But
now, okay, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I want you to do it.
Well, you mentioned before that there is sort of like this inciting incident with Oya, and it gets fleshed out in another series that was happening simultaneously, which is Generation Hope.
Yes, this is Kieran Gillen's series. Tim Seeley does the first 2 issues that we're covering here, numbers 10 and 11, and number 12 has Steven Sanders on art. And it's about Oya having to do a murder and feeling bad about it, and then Hope having to essentially say, Cyclops, we are going to fight for our island home because I grew up in the future and Cable's my dad.
Right. This is all I've ever known.
So, like, this is not even a little bit of an ethical thing for me. I'm a soldier. And it's about the fallout from that decision onward. This is the kid's perspective on this event, which is important because it's Wolverine and Cyclops fighting over children. I think the downside of it is that it focuses on Generation Hope, who have had 9 issues before this and are not like the most fleshed out children.
No, we're not talking about the cast of New X-Men here, right? Like the basic premise of these 3 issues, aside from exploring how Oya is feeling, is Transonic going at it with Hope, and the 2 of them arguing about whether they should be following Hope at all, which I guess is an interesting arc for this group of characters, but it also is just kind of like, we know that all of this is just happening in the background of the other miniseries.
Right. So this follows up on the arc that Gillen was doing as Generation Hope was progressing, which was that the rest of the Lights, they felt a unique bond to Hope. They felt a deep connection, much like the 5 in Hoxpox in the whole Krakoa era, where they feel stronger together and all this stuff. And two of the Lights, specifically Transonic and Zero, who's the Akira monster,
right?
They don't like that.
No,
which is not an unreasonable perspective.
Yeah, there's definitely an element here where some of them feel very connected, some of them don't. They're starting to see what the divisions are between them. I think it suffers for exactly the reason that you said. Like, it's getting sucked into an event after not a lot of character development of these characters being introduced. So, there's not a lot really happening, especially after they've defeated the Sentinel off screen, and it's more sort of like teen drama. There's a thing with Pixie.
Pixie makes out with Velocidad,
right?
Who
and
had
Hope's
been crushing on Hope.
That.
They'd been kind of dating. Anyway, then Pixie finds out and she's mad at him, and then Hope finds out and she's mad at him. So she kicks him in the nuts and says, "Pixie, you're on the team now. Let's make this weird."
Yeah.
Listen. She's a Summers. I love her. I love Hope. She's very good.
She might be the only really interesting thing here, though. Like the introduction of we've been calling her Oya, but Edie, I think is
Edie really Okinawa. Yeah,
is what people start calling her in Wolverine and the X-Men. That character, from the beginning is this whole idea of having we've called her sort of a Rain clone in the past, because her whole thing is about religious guilt, and that extends to this event where she had to kill people. And is this her place on the earth? Is this what she's supposed to be doing? I think that stuff's kind of interesting. I don't know that it's done particularly well here, though.
No, it's done badly. I think that's the biggest curse of Idea Okinawa, is that she is consistently written poorly. Like, she just feels like she's sitting here saying, I am a monster, I am evil. There does not feel like there is any real internal conflict with her or any growth or anything like that. The story is about how she is too good and pure, and we must protect her instead of letting her discover who she is. And it's not my favorite. I tend to have a more favorable view of the lights in general. I think Primal is an interesting, if not well executed, idea. I like Zero as both a visual design, and I like that he's so overtly a villain, but he's a villain who's making like incredibly reasonable points and not even doing much. He's a villain because he's an antagonist and he's coded as weird and creepy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that's interesting, and I like the joke where Rockslide is talking to Transonic, and she's like, "Oh, I feel like I need to get out of my clothes and take a shower." And Rockslide, who again is a rock man, looks at her because she's a blue, like, I don't even know how to describe her.
She's blue.
She's a blue person who doesn't wear clothes. Her skin is her costume, and he looks at her and he says, "You can get more naked?" And I like that Rockslide, yes, he's being a weird kind of pervy teen. Also, that's a very valid question, and it is incredibly confusing to think about for more than 5 seconds. That's a very Kieran Gillen line, and I do like that. I like Kieran Gillen in general. I think this arc is... Tim Seeley's not my favorite artist.
I was going to say, the art is just kind of okay. It doesn't
it's just okay.
add anything.
I don't love Seeley's art. I don't love Sanders' art. It's fine. They're good hands. They're workmen. It's just nothing that's going to stand out.
No, not at all. So I don't think this is really adding too much to the already strange circumstances that are being dealt with here. So
I also don't know if it's better or worse than Schism proper, because I think the problems it has are different than the problems that Schism has. Like Schism has unique, like, very specific tonal issues and how it's presented. I think Generation Hope is presented as straightforward, and its biggest flaw is that it has to be a tie-in to this event. Like,
right.
It's not allowed to tell its story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it still has to arrive at the same, point, which is, honestly, there's not a lot of character evolution here. Like, you would want these 3 issues to, like, be something that was, especially given what Edie has gone through, you want to see some sort of change. You want to see some sort of evolution with the character for better or worse. And you don't really get that. There is none. It's more just about, like, who's siding with who.
Yeah. The resolution to this is them saying, hey, so even if Hope Summers thinks that we should still be, like, child soldiers, she does think that maybe this one shouldn't. Maybe Edie shouldn't be a child soldier. Maybe that's not the best thing for her. But it may be I say maybe, likely, because Edie would then move on to a different book, and Hope would be the character who remains through this. So the focus is kept on her and her point of view here, but Edie doesn't exactly get a lot of... We don't get to explore her side of that decision. She's having a choice made for her.
Right. Yeah. And which ultimately is just kind of pointless, because once the characters get over to Wolverine and the X-Men, they are inevitably, even though they're going to class in a quote-unquote school, they're still being battle trained, and
they're still doing X-Men stuff.
They're doing X-Men stuff and going on field trips and, bumping into supervillains, and or supervillains are attacking the school. I mean, it's okay. I gotta stop that, because that's not really what this is about.
That's a different comic.
Different scenario. All right. So better or worse than Schism?
It's like right there, because like 2 above Schism is X-Men Legacy, 248, 249, the aftermath of Age of X, that has some stuff with Rogue and Magneto and Gambit. And again, that's flawed, but I think that's better than this. Like, I'd rather go back to that.
I would give the edge to Schism, if only because it's at least trying to do something like a little bit more dramatic, even though it doesn't make sense. This just feels kind of like dead air. I want more to be happening here, and it's not.
Is this better or worse than just two below at 281, Astonishing X-Men 48 to 56, which is the lead-in to Greg Pak's... Wait, 48 to 56. No, I'm sorry. Edit that out. Astonishing X-Men 48 to 56, which is the Marjorie Liu North Star wedding, but also incredibly long Karma plot.
Ooh. Similar, right? I mean, I think I'd have to give the edge to Astonishing just because it has the wedding in it. I mean, that's got to count for something. But we're in the right ballpark. How do you feel about it with X-Men Evolution 1 to 6 at 283?
I like X-Men Evolution a lot.
Okay.
One of our friends decided to rewatch it today, and I was like, I thought she was judging it. I said, "Oh no, I love it." And she said, "Zach, we're the same age. You've seen me. I look like X-Men Evolution Rogue. Do you think that I don't also love it?"
Of course, it's good. It's got a lot of fun stuff happening in it. I agree that I think Evolution is probably those 6 issues are probably better.
It's probably not as good as that Neil Adams X-Men story with the first Cable and also the Sentinels flying into the sun. It's probably not that good. I do think it's better than X-Force 49 and 50, which is Cable versus X-Force.
I'm on board. I think that's a good place for it. So this is going to be our new 285.
This will be our new 285, Generation Hope Schism. Now we have content that was also reprinted in one of those issues of Generation Hope.
Yeah, we didn't talk about this, but it is weird. Like, they even note it on the intro page, but there's a couple of pages of that Generation Hope arc that is from this third story. And it switches artists, and it does exclude one panel and just puts a word bubble there, because the theme of this issue... well, let's tell them what it is. What is this?
It's X-Men Regenesis. Number 1, written by Kieran Gillen. Adam. Written by Kieran Gillen, with art by Billy Tan, colors by Andres Mosa. This is a story about the X-Men choosing sides, who would go to Westchester, who would stay in Utopia. It's not exactly dramatic because there was a lot of promo about who would be choosing what sides, and also the end of Schism told you who was choosing what sides, more or less. So it ends up being like, what side's Dazzler gonna choose? And you're like, well,
who cares?
Love Dazzler. Wasn't the first thing on my mind.
Should we talk about the framing device that's being used here throughout this issue, which is bonkers and silly?
I want you to talk about the framing device because I want to see what you know.
Oh, there's a secret.
There is. Go.
All right, I'm just going to describe it as is then, and you can give me the reveal, because I like learning things like this. So when this issue opens, we are in caveman times. We have Wolverine next to a fire, and Cyclops is there, and he's wearing a lion's mane over his head. And throughout the issue, as those two caveman versions fight, they collect additional soldiers who approach in their cavemen garb, and eventually they form their teams and walk away from the fire. So, okay, I'm excited now. What do I need to know?
So you know how Cyclops is wearing a lion thing, motif.
Yes.
So in the script, Kieran Gillen wrote that Cyclops is wearing a Loincloth.
Oh, no.
What Kieran Gillen was meant was that he was wearing a loincloth.
Loincloth?
And Billy Tan was like, okay, whatever. He's wearing a lion. Let's go with it. I'm sure it's thematic with something. And Gillen's just like, it is what it is now. Figure out what it means.
My God. I mean, the lion head that he is wearing over his eyes does have red eyes, which is kind of funny.
It's like Billy Tan got it and said, okay, I get the symbolism that Gillen's going for here. I understand what he's trying to do. We're just going to run with it. And Kieran Gillen got it back and he said, well, that was a freebie. I look so much smarter than I was.
You know what this issue reminds me of a lot is the final issue of Muir Island Saga, where they just sort of walk around the island and characters are just like cleaning up or just sitting around. And it's like, you know, hey, what are you going to do next? Well, what are you going to do? And it's basically both of, you know, Wolverine and Scott sort of walking around recruiting people. And it's not interesting in the slightest. Like the motivation that either of them give to, you know, go with them is kind of like, I don't know. Like it gives the most stupid explanation for why Toad ends up as the janitor. Or
there's like 3 breakups that happen in this issue, which is weird.
Yeah.
Like Colossus and Shadowcat like officially break up because Colossus is going to stay with his sister who's in prison. And Kitty's like, well, I'm going to go be a school teacher over there, you big dummy. Rogue and Magneto break up. I forget how well it's addressed in Mike Carey's run, and because I actually believe, no, it's not addressed because Carey ends X-Men Legacy and Christos Gage picks it up with Regenesis. So just kind of takes that off the table. And then Cannonball and Mirage break up because who's taking over the book at this point? That Dan Abnett and Andy Lanning, I believe, take over the book here, or maybe they had already been on it for a spell. Anyway, all that happens, and it's framed that Emma Frost may break up with Cyclops and go be a teacher, because if Emma is for anything, it's for the children. And she essentially says, no, I already made my decision yesterday. I'm going to stay with you, Scott. Right. And that's a sweet moment. Gillen does end up breaking them up in a way that I don't care for, but it's sweet in that moment.
Sure. Yeah, and I mean, that's the only thing that even remotely comes close to being dramatic here is the moment where you think Emma is going to switch sides and doesn't. But, I mean, like I said, it's pretty anticlimactic.
The other part that I think does work is the scene between Hope and Transonic. I think that's done well because Transonic essentially comes bearing a gun at Hope and says, you're letting Idie leave. And Hope kind of just looks at her and says, you really want me to be the bad guy and I'm not? I'm like 14 and my dad died 2 weeks ago. So I'm going through a lot. I'm sorry I've not been there for you, I guess. But I've got my own stuff going on. I kind of just want to cry right now. Is that okay? Like, it's a very human moment for Hope.
Yeah, that works. I do think it's hilarious that is the segment that was copied over to the other issue, but they definitely had to chop out the panel of Wolverine looking at Edie in her like cave bikini walking past them, because that wouldn't have made sense in that other issue's context. So yeah, I mean, I do not care for the artwork here.
I'm not a Billy Tan guy.
Yeah, oh boy, not like, you know, the characters are on model for the most part, but I just don't like the way they're drawn throughout this whole thing. And this caveman thing, just, I don't get it. Like, what is, I mean, aside from just, hey, we're picking teams, they might have well have been like picking teams for dodgeball or something in gym class. Like, I don't really understand what the deal is with these. I guess it's supposed to be tribes. We're different tribes. We're going to different. That's the best I can do here.
They essentially had it. It feels like they said, "Well, Jason Aaron has Wolverine. Kieran Gillen has Cyclops. Who's critical to your story?" Like, and they went through and said, "Okay, well, I guess X Factor fits in wherever, so they can be on on Wolverine's side. And well, do we want X-Men Legacy to continue being on the island? Or, well, you're doing stuff with Magneto. Okay, well, then Rogue can be at the school. Gambit, we want in this thing, doing his own solo thing soon, so he'll be over there at the school." He has no reason. He just says, "I'm bored." Gambit's Wolverine, which is a very Gambit move. Like, Psylocke is told, "Hey, I guess I will continue to be on your assassination team, Wolverine, but I'm going to be on Cyclops' side," which is the dumbest threading the needle of, well, we're not going to screw up Uncanny X-Force, right?
Right.
Like, it's a half measure is what it is.
Yeah.
They are like, how do we shake things up with shaking up as little as possible?
Well, and to the point where the caption on the last page, where the two groups go off into their opposite directions, it does say, "Whose side are you on?" And it does ask the readers to kind of like say, "Well, all right, where does my allegiance lie given these rosters that I've now seen?"
Literally, why I picked Uncanny X-Men.
Well, there you go.
I was looking at both, and if I was now, I would have picked the Chris Bachalo book because, duh. I'm me. But looking at it is like, okay, well, I don't care for, Wolverine's fine, but like Beast, Iceman, Kitty, those aren't my favorite characters. But over here we got Storm, Magneto, Cyclops, Emma Frost. That's a good team. I'm excited. Colossus is there and he's the Juggernaut. What's up with this? I don't know who this sword lady is, but or this gun Jean Grey, whoever she is, but I like her. And I picked that book, which I think
you made a good choice. I think.
Well, did I? Because I had to deal with a lot of Greg Land art.
Oh, that's true.
I had to deal with a lot of Greg Land art, and I didn't know better at the time.
Yeah, I mean, I remember I didn't even know there was the other book, to be honest. I was just sort of out of my depth. But this book, I don't think is essential or necessary. I mean, if you want to read Schism just to get an idea of why they, what the story reasons were for the sides splitting up, that's fine. Go check it out. It's important to continuity, but I don't think you need this issue to add anything aside from just like we said, it's picking teams.
As someone who wasn't reading at the time, I can confirm that and tell you that all you need to know is Wolverine and Cyclops had a fight.
Right.
That's it.
Right. It doesn't add much, so especially this particular issue, I think really has no bearing on your enjoyment of where things are going to go or where they've been. So definitely don't think this is in the same realm as the other two. It's probably a lot lower. Where is Muir Island Saga on here? I know I was comparing it.
Muir Island Saga is way worse than this, Adam. You're forgetting how nonsensical the Muir Island Saga is.
I remember bringing it up. So that's down at 370.
You're not wrong, but this is better than that. Actually, hold on. Is this better than that ROM story we talked about last week?
No, definitely not. That was at least action-packed and kind of
action-packed.
Fun, you know what I mean?
This isn't better than X-Men No More Humans at 345.
No, it is not.
It's not better than the first arc of the Cena Grace Iceman at 353.
See, you're working your way down to where I was talking there.
This is better than the first arc of Extraordinary X-Men, though.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
Come on. Yeah.
I'll give you that. So that
remember how that one has a scene very early on where it's like, by the way, Colossus's parents abused him, and it's never brought up again.
Yes, thank God for that.
Jeez, what a weird thing, Jeff Lemire.
Strange book. All right, so this is going to be our new 354.
This is our new 354 Regenesis, and our schism is over. We're complete. We are back together, I'm sure.
I'm glad. I wasn't really worried, but
I wasn't either. We can't do anything big and dramatic until we're closer to episode 200, to be honest.
That's true. And we are getting closer to that, folks, so stay tuned. So, Zach, what's up with you, man? Well, we should thank Jason again, I guess.
We should thank Jason again, because Jason went over to patreon.com/comicsxf, threw some money into our coffers and said, folks, I love what you're doing. I love what I'm doing, and I like to help us all get paid. So, we do thank Jason. Jason's great. I'll check out what Jason does. He's a great artist, great graphic designer, great web designer, great friend. And yeah, super duper cool. Want to be like him? The Patreon is where it's at, and go check it out. Also, Comics XF has a lot of great content, including that thing.
You guys can always follow me on Twitter at Arthur Stacy. And Zach, I believe that we are going to talk about like Conan next week, right?
Yeah, we're going to talk about the Kulan Gath arc.
Oh my god.
Here's the thing about Kulan Gath. I have found a lot of people who really like it, and I've found a lot of people who were reading Claremont and chose that to be the moment where they said, I'm done. So it's going to be... This one's... I am very excited to revisit this story. We'll see what happens. But until then, guys, this has been Battle of the Atom, and we hope you survived the experience.
Get it!